Hello everyone. In this video, I will be discussing an outline. Now, if you want to write a research term paper, you need to write a draft. However, before writing a draft, you need to write an outline. But what is an outline and what are the parts of an outline? As you can see here, an outline is made up of three parts that are introduction, body, and conclusion. In this video, I will be talking about the introduction. Now, the introduction is itself composed of two parts that are attention getter, transition, introducing the topic or issue, relating it to the current situation, and thesis statement. That is the first part of the introduction, followed by definition of the topic or problem, background studies, its importance, relating the issue with other studies, and stating your focus. In this video, I will be talking about the first part of the introduction. Now, this is an introduction. It is made up of only one paragraph. So I will give you a minute to pause the video and read the introduction. Now, I have divided this introduction into different parts, marked with different colors. And in this slide, I have bulleted each part. Can you guess which parts are they? Okay, now let's read each part. Okay, the first part. There has been an alarming number of divorces seen in the recent years, especially in developing countries. For instance, according to Ghazali 2004, this number was 245,000 cases in Malaysia in the year 2002. And many studies show the increasing number of divorces over the past few years. James 2009. Do you know what part is it? Yes, of course, it is the attention getter, because here you want to get the attention of the audience by introducing facts. Now, the second part. With divorce comes the challenge of child's custody, a topic which has been controversial until today. In almost every divorce, both parents fight for the custody of the children. Do you know what part is this? Yes, this is a transition, because this is going to link two different ideas together. How about the third part? However, many courts rule in favor of the mothers reserving the right of the custody for children while the fathers are allowed to visit. Grawl 2002. Yeah, this is introducing the topic. And the next part. Considering the large number of divorces as well as controversial disagreement among social sciences and family experts on who should take the custody of children, and finally considering the large number of votes giving this right to the mothers, this study looked through the debate to see if mothers should be given the right for child's custody against other studies that show the benefits of joint custody or giving the custody to the fathers. Yes, this is relating the topic to the current situation. And the last part, while mothers tend to be the ideal choice for the two reasons of, number one, being emotionally attached, and number two, being the main providers of care to the children, especially in the early years, which cannot be often provided by fathers. Mother's lack of ability, number one, regarding financial support, and number two, lack of a strong character in the children's life, especially after they grow up, justify the joint custody as the most ideal type of custody. Yes, you are right. This is the thesis statement. Now let's discuss each part. Okay, the first thing that I would like to discuss is the citation. How many citations do you see in this part? Yes, in this slide, you see 3 citations because you are introducing 3 facts. And of course, when you introduce facts, you have to introduce the citation. You have to say, where did you get the facts from? For example, according to Ghazali 2004, this number was 245,000 cases in Malaysia in the year 2002. And then, of course, in the second sentence, you want to claim the number of divorces increase every year. So you have to say, where did you get the information? James 2009. And then the third citation actually shows that many courts rule in favor of the mothers reserving the right of the custody for the children, while the fathers are allowed to visit. So if you claim this information, then again you need to give the citation. Now, what is a transition? A transition is 1 or 2 sentences that link 2 different ideas together. For example, here you can see that the transition links divorce to the custody. With divorce comes the challenge of child custody, a topic which has been controversial until today. In almost every divorce, both parents fight for the custody of the children. So this transition is linking divorce to custody, as you can see here. Before the transition, we talked about divorce, the number of divorces in Malaysia, and the increasing number of divorces. And after the transition, we talked about child custody as the topic of this study. Now, I needed a transition to link these 2 ideas together. Of course, it doesn't mean that your paper must necessarily have transition. Maybe you can start with giving information about child custody as the attention getter. Then in this case, basically you do not need the transition. For example, you can talk about the large number of child custody cases in the courts. However, you need a citation. But because I didn't have any citation, I didn't have any statistics or any facts in this regard, then I had to start with divorces. But then I needed to introduce my topic. So that is why I needed the transition. Okay, now let's look at this other feature. This is discourse markers. How many discourse markers do you see here? 1, for instance, 2, and 3, however, and number 4, while. What is the function of for instance? Of course, it gives examples. What is the function of and? It adds to the previous sentence. So for example, if the previous sentence was giving example, then and actually presents another example. However, links two opposite ideas. So for example, here we have both parents fight for the custody of the children. However, many courts ruled in favor of the mothers. And the last discourse marker in this slide is while. While has a similar function to however. While also shows the link between 2 opposite ideas. While mothers tend to be the ideal choice, the joint custody is the most ideal type of custody. So here you can see the differences, the functions of the discourse markers. There has been an alarming number of divorces, for instance, and here I give an example, and here I give another example. And here both parents fight for the custody of the children. However, only mothers win. While many people believe that mothers tend to be the ideal choice, from my point of view, the joint custody is the most ideal type of custody. Okay, let's look at the thesis statement now. While mothers tend to be the ideal choice for the two reasons of being emotionally attached and the main providers of care for the children, especially in their early years, which cannot be often provided by fathers, mothers' lack of ability regarding financial support and lack of a strong character in children's life, especially after they grow up, justify the joint custody as the most ideal type of custody. So this is the thesis statement. Thesis statement is the most important sentence in an essay or in a paper. Okay, how many arguments do you see in this thesis statement? One, I believe that joint custody is the ideal type of custody. That is my argument. So this paper is an argumentative paper. How many counter arguments do I have? Two. Number one, mother is the ideal choice. Number two, fathers are the ideal choice. And of course, for each one, there are two reasons. Now, mothers are the ideal choice. Reason number one, because they are emotionally attached. And reason number two, because they are the main providers of care to the children, especially when they are very young. Fathers are the ideal choice because number one, they are the main financial supporter. And number two, because they present a strong character in the children's life. So, how many sections do you think my paper should have? Based on this thesis statement, my paper should have 5 sections. The first section is about the argument. And of course, the second section is the counter argument number 1, which is mother's emotional attachment. And of course, I have to reject this counter argument. And here I can, for example, bring evidence or examples rejecting the counter argument. For example, fathers have emotional attachment too. And then section 3 is about the counter argument number 2, mother's caring abilities, which again, if I want to prove my argument, I have to reject it too. For example, I can say that fathers have caring abilities too, which of course I have to refer to other studies. Now, section 4 gives the right to the fathers. Mothers' lack of financial support. Fathers are the main breadwinners. Again, I have to reject it because I want to prove that joint custody is the best solution. For example, I can say that in this economy, mothers help with the income. And section 5, mothers do not present a strong character after children grow up. Again, I have to reject this. For example, I can say that children need a balanced character growth. Okay, so here we have got 5 sections based on this thesis statement. Let's see if these 5 sections match with the thesis statement. Okay, section number 1, and here we have justifying the joint custody. That is my argument. And in section number 2, in my paper, introduces counter argument number 1. Now let's see if I have talked about it in my thesis statement. Yes, it's here. And section 3 of my paper is related to this part of the thesis statement. Section 4 is related to this part. And finally, section 5 is related to this part. Okay, so your outline should be a table like this. You can have a subsection. Here you can write the section. Number one shows the introduction, number two is the body, and number three is the conclusion. So for the subsection, you can write attention getter, transition. Of course, if your paper has transition, introducing the topic, relating the topic to the present situation, and thesis statement. In the description part, you need to write exactly what is your attention getter, your transition, or you're introducing the topic. And in the third column, you need to write the citation if there are any. Of course, it means that sometimes maybe there are not citations. For example, here for this transition, I don't have any citations. Or for this relating the topic to the present situation, or for thesis statements, I don't have any citations here. Usually for thesis statements, we don't put any citation. Again, this is part of the introduction. Definition. What is the meaning of child custody? Even you can actually continue writing how many different types of custody do we have. And of course, here you need to have citation. And then you can link your study with other studies. There are other studies that have looked at other aspects of child custody, but they are not very much related to my paper. So I only mentioned them briefly in my introduction. For example, psychological effects, or the relationship between divorce and bullying, or the relationship between type of child custody and school performance. However, I will not analyze them in my paper because they are not related to my thesis statement. I just want to inform the audience, my readers, that there has been other research in this regard. And this is part two, which is the body. I will write the argument number one. I will introduce it. There are no citations here. And the evidence number one, evidence number two, and of course I have citations for them. And then I have example number one, which is for evidence number two. Okay, thank you very much.